White vehicle. It's 10:56 and 25 seconds. Off camera at 10:56 and 50-something seconds.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, even though we've seen those videos before spliced together as a reel, since these have the true time and the true time stamp on it, not the error, I would like to introduce these into evidence under that State's Exhibit 5 that we're keeping open for digital evidence.
Yes, sir. I'm a little confused as to how you're going to keep them separate. Tell me how you're going to keep them separate.
We have-
How they're going to be marked, I guess.
They're going to be labeled.
Okay.
And they're going to be labeled. So for instance, on these, they're labeled timestamp included correct time. But if we need to also assign them A, B, C, D, and things like that.
And does that not need to coincide with the incorrect one? Or no? I'm just asking. Does that make sense?
When you say coincide, what do you mean? Because we can make
So there's been a, one shown
with the wrong
yesterday
time.
with the wrong time. That's on this same
Yes.
zip drive, right? So how are we gonna know what this video coincides with the ones that were shown last week?
They have the time, they have the date and the time, and we know what happened is the real time is 10:50-ish.
Judge, can we approach?
Yes,
correct me if I'm wrong, we've watched sort of one event that you viewed on the Crosstown video, is that correct?
Yes,
And we've watched the original video with the timestamp.
yes,
And the times that we saw were 10:49 to 10:56 a.m.
yes, sir.
Approximately an hour and a half before the shooting.
Yes, sir.
You also watched other video, correct?
Yes, sir.
An earlier video from around 2:40 that morning when the suspect left the Crosstown complex. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you also watched a video from around 4:48 with the Mercedes arriving at the Crosstown complex. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you also watched a video from later that evening around 7:52 p.m. Of the suspect returning to Crosstown. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then a video around 8:17 p.m. of the suspect with luggage leaving the Crosstown concourse. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And as you watch these videos, did you also create a timeline of these events?
Yes, sir.
And did you do that back when you originally watched the videos, 11:24 and 11:26 of 2021?
Yes, sir.
Now, I passed you this document and asked you what this is.
Oh, I think it was.
Those times I just read to you from that timeline, did you verify that those aren't the times when those things happened?
Yes, sir.
With the videos with the timestamps
The video with the timestamp.
before they were ever put into reels or whatever?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, Lieutenant.
Good morning, sir.
Doing all right today?
Well, are you?
Doing well, doing well. So I've just got a few questions for you. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir.
So you were asked some questions about obtaining the Crosstown videos, and I think you said that you went on November 24th to try to obtain video from Crosstown and the 26th.
Yes, sir.
Did you go twice because you weren't able to get them the first time and had to go back, or were you able to get some the first time and some the second time?
We were not able to get anything initially because they had to have a technician to actually retrieve the video. What we did, we went in and reviewed. When I say we, I'm talking about my partner, Sergeant West, and I. We went in and we reviewed within a certain time frame, which was from, I think we reviewed from 2:30 to about 11 o'clock was our time frame of review. And we went and reviewed those time frames and had bookmarks done.
Okay.
Once the bookmarks was done of videos from each section or part of camera view at Crosstown Concourse, then their technician came in later and downloaded those bookmarks for us.
Fair to say that the system that you're watching these videos is a computer system?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Not like old school VCRs, tapes running, a wall or anything, right?
No, sir.
Okay. And I'm sure in your long career in law enforcement, you've collected a lot of surveillance video
Yes, sir.
from different locations. And you would agree with me that it's not uncommon for surveillance video timestamps to be inaccurate.
That's true.
And I think you said the way that you went about trying to confirm accuracy was by looking at the time when you were there and looking at the video and saying it was the same, like those times matched. If you're there on the 24th at 2 p.m., you looked up at the system and it said on the video it was the 24th at 2 p.m.
Yeah, we compared the live view.
The live view.
Yes, sir.
But you would agree with me, you weren't watching the live view on November 17th or November 16th when these concourse videos were actually being recorded, correct?
No, we were not.
You're going back and reviewing an archived video format of those, correct?
Yes, right now.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you don't have to apologize. Just say yes or no.
Yes.
And truth be told, you can't, whether it was the live view was accurate, right? You can't say whether it was accurate on the 17th, right? Because all you did was look on the 24th and go, my watch says it's 2 p.m. on the 24th. I'm making up that time just as an example. And the live view shows it as 2 p.m. on the 24th. Therefore, this must be accurate. That's right.
Yes, we use a live view to check and see if the cameras were accurate during that time before we did the bookmarks.
But that test alone doesn't tell you whether or not it's accurate on November 17th and November 16th. You would have to agree with me, right?
Yes.
So you can't say that these timestamps are accurate as to what occurred on November 16th or 17th, right? Because you don't know if the system was rebooted, malfunctioned, something happened. You can't speak to any of that.
I cannot tell you if anything happened to that system. I can only tell you that when we did our initial view, as far as live view is concerned, we compared, and that's been our best practice to do each and every time we download video to make sure that there is no differentiation between hour, minutes, sometimes, because sometimes it can be a 30-minute time loop or an hour time loop. That's why we do the live view best practice before we begin that review.
Right, and that's something, because especially on a system like this, that's something that, computer technician would have to tell you, right? Someone familiar with the system that audits the system or works on the system or at least is qualified and knows the system.
To let us know if there was a time loop or there was an inaccuracy.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right, and you didn't have that. You didn't have that information.
Well, we had the computer technician with us at the time because he was the one that had to download all the footage that we had bookmarked. So yes, there was someone there to let us know that, yeah, this is the time.
Right, but other than saying we've booked, because you said you bookmarked it, other than saying we've bookmarked these times, did you ever say, was there any issue with the system? Do you know these times to be accurate?
That was never a question answered.
All right, you just based that on the live time.
Yes.
All right.
His ability to tell us that we were in live time and it was accurate during the time in which we started the preparation of bookmarking.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
1 second.
Thank you, ma'am.
Call your next witness.
It's been Michael Gardner.
Step up, please, sir. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
At seat, watch your step.
Tell us your name, please,
Michael Garner,
and spell the first and last name for the record, please.
Michaelgarner.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm a criminal investigator, special agent with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
And how long have you been with the TBI?
Only 3 months.
Because you were with MPD before that, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I retired in June after 20 years.
20 years MPD, and now you're at TBI.
Yes, sir.
At some point during your service at MPD, did you become involved in digital forensics?
Yes, sir. In 2018, I was assigned to the organized crime unit, and some digital evidence came in, and they needed a computer guy to look at it. And that's when I started in digital forensics, which became full-time in July of 2020.
So about 6 or 7 years ago, you got your start in this.
Yes, sir.
And then full-time at MPD, what does a digital forensics person do?
We extracted evidence from mobile devices, GPS monitors, car infotainment centers, and reported those findings out to the investigators working the cases, sir.
Did you receive and have you received special training to do that sort of job?
Yes, sir. In both digital forensics and cellular technologies. Started with cellular technologies in 2012 and got my first certifications in 2014 with a PATC tech. And then in 2015, I started working with the electronic surveillance and communication intercepts, and I got certified on PLX through a company called Pinlink, and did a lot of call detail record analysis with PLX. And then working digital forensics, we like to try and marry the cellular technologies from the cell phone carriers with the device itself. So then I started working with applications like CellHawk and, of course, forensic applications like Celebrite and Magnet that would pull the data from the device and look at the CDRs and just put those together for a complete picture of like a digital footprint.
And is there still training that you do? You keep updated on this?
Yes, sir. This technology changes quite often. You can tell the last couple of years with 4G going to 5G, and about every 2 months, I'm continuing education with sometimes 1 hour blocks, but often 3 hour blocks of instructions on just the evolving technologies. And that's both through Pinlink with their systems and vendor neutral through PATC tag.
I'm going to have you explain what some of this is, but before you testified, you handed me a list, I guess, of your training hours on various digital forensic things. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How many hours of training have you had?
Almost 1,300 hours.
Almost 1,300 hours.
Yes, sir.
And that is actual training that's not, you also do your job too, right?
Yes, sir. That is outside the scope of my work. Yes, sir.
With regard to what we're going to be talking about here is cell phones, and you've mentioned it already, call detail records.
Yes, sir.
Quickly, I know that you have a presentation that helps explain the technology.
Yes, sir.
If you could just sort of quickly tell me what we mean by call detail records, if you would.
So when you sign up for service through a cell company, you've got an account with that company, and they can monitor the usage of that account, and that reporting out that we receive is the call detail records. And it's just the records of your calls, incoming, outgoing, text messages, your data usage, and they break it down so that you can be billed properly, and they can make a little bit of money, and you get real good service.
Do some of these call detail records have tower information on it?
Yes, sir.
And what do we mean by tower information? What am I trying to say when I say tower information?
So the cell tower is what we're talking about here. Your cell phone uses radio waves, much like a walkie-talkie or a can and two strings when you were little. But it's a wireless communication from that device to a tower that then relays that communication to whether you called another cell phone or a landline or another country. And those communications are logged with the company.
Someone like you, do y'all have access to like where these towers are?
Yes, sir. The cell site database I get through the FBI, a website that I have to register through, and they verify me as a law enforcement officer. And when Sprint bought, when AT&T bought Sprint, they merged their towers. They turned some of the towers off. So every time you look at a case, you want to look at the towers during that time frame, because the towers are always changing. And I get that list of towers and the list of changes from the FBI website called Indicat.
And so in your job, are sometimes you asked, or are you sometimes asked to look at call detail records that have tower information and attempt to determine approximate areas that particular device could be located in at a certain time?
Yes, sir, quite often.
And are you able to do that?
If the data is there, absolutely, yes, sir.
And have you done that one time, or have you done that a lot?
I've done that almost 1,000 times.
Almost on a day-to-day basis at NPD?
Yes, sir, daily.
And part of your job now at TBI?
Yes, sir.
Was a lot of that training, those hours, spent on that sort of concept or that practice?
Over a third of those hours are in cellular technology. Yes, sir.
Have you had occasion in the courts of Shelby County to testify as an expert on these call detail records, emphasis on location, before?
Yes, sir, I have
One time or multiple times?
multiple times.
State court and federal court?
Federal court was digital forensics, not cellular technology. But yes, sir.
With digital forensics, would that include extractions from cell phones?
Yes, sir.
And what is an extraction from a cell phone?
This is, we take the device, and if we are able with our software and technologies, we make a complete copy, if possible, of everything that's on that device. And then we take a copy of that, make a copy, and then we analyze that copy of what we pulled from the phone.
And to do that, do you have to be trained in the various programs and everything that extract information
Yes, sir.
and trained how to look at it?
Yes, sir.
And have you received that training and those certifications?
I have this, some of the other hours in there. Received training from both the vendors of the softwares that we use, things like Magnet and Celebrite, Gray Shift, and then non-vendor training through IASIS and the NCFI in Hoover, Alabama, through the Secret Service.
Your Honor, I would tender this witness, Mr. Gardner, as an expert in call detail analysis, emphasis on location, and digital forensics.
No objection.
Tell me what that tender was again.
Well, I'm not saying I got it right? Call detail records, emphasis in this case on location, and digital forensics.
Okay.
So I qualify this witness, Mr. Garner, as an expert in the area of call detail records with an emphasis in location and digital, what was that last word?
Digital forensics.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
That's all right.
I'm struggling with the technology over here as y'all speak.
So,
Mr. Honor, have you prepared a report with regard to this case?
Yes, sir.
Let me pass you this. Just verify this is your report.
Yes, sir.
All right. I guess we should go ahead and mark that as state six number 2.
No objection.
you know how many pages?
76.
This is 76 page document.
Is it 76 minus 3 or is it 76?
76 minus 30 is 73.
73 page document. It's entitled Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, Cyber Crime and Digital Evidence Report prepared by Special Agent Michael Garner. We'll mark this as a collective exhibit number 64.
We could return that to the witness. And if we can publish this as I asked Agent Garner questions. We managed to get it on the computer up here, so we're ahead of the game. I just say the title page with regard to this case, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, we skip to the next. You can go ahead.
All right. So during my presentation, I just do want to show these slides of me just mapping out where a cell tower location is and the antenna. I kind of want to teach you about what I'm talking about here, kind of an overview of cellular technology and how it works. Because some people think you hit send on the phone and it goes to a satellite and then comes down. They do have satellite phones, but that's not what we're talking about here today. And then I'm going to go over the requested information of me, what they had asked of me, and then my analysis, and then the mapping of those records. And here they're just going to kind of go over the cellular technology that I've had hundreds of hours of training in. Pretty good. So we see these when we're driving down the interstate or we're pulling in the grocery store. So that is a cell tower, cell site location based transceiver station. What we really are interested in is the tops of them. They're called heads. And those little white rectangles, those are antenna. You might see 3, you could see as many as 9 facing one direction. It all depends on the topographical area and the population of that area. The more cell phones, the more coverage you need, the more antennas you need, the better service they can be provided for you. So they want to keep you as their customer. So, and then the next slide, and when I talked about, we don't want to have the thought that just because it's a radio wave, how does that work? Unless a device is calling another device on the same tower, all these radio waves actually touch copper. It's like our phones in our house when we're used to wired phones. That actually touches copper. It goes from the phone to the tower, to the base station controller, and all that's doing is these computers are looking for the number that you called. If it's not there, it moves to the next one. And all of these towers keeping record of the phones that it's communicating with, this entire network is run by computers that know where the device is. That's how they can connect a call so quickly. But they can't all be connected wirelessly. So they hit the gateway goes to copper. And this copper line is how we can connect multiple switches together, and switches contain lots of cell towers. That way we can have a wireless network that's actually got a backbone built on phone cables. And so even though we're using a wireless device, it's actually touching copper. It's actually going to copper. So it doesn't go into space and it doesn't come down. And anywhere where you don't have a cell tower, you're not going to have cell coverage. So if you're out in the ocean, for example, and it sounds kind of silly, but you want to think, you see the cell tower, that's going to have a cellular communication. So this is how the network routes your call. And each of these computers maintains a log of phone numbers, and that's part of the call detail records that we get back. Now that rectangular antenna that you see on that tower head, it broadcasts a radio signal. And in a lab, in a laboratory environment, that is what that antenna is broadcasting in a perfect environment. It's about a 120-degree spread, and it broadcasts out. But it also has a little bit on the side and some on the back. But that's in a perfect lab environment. This is usually what, if you requested what a particular antenna, what its frequency broadcast is, you would get a graph much like this. And based on that graph, they build the cellular networks much like a honeycomb from a beehive because it's very strong. And you get overlapping signals. So in case one side of a tower gets full or there's a building in the way, a lot of trees, another side of another tower can cover that weak area. So they overlap these sectors, again, to give you the best service so they can make money. Because if you're unhappy, you're going to leave your carrier. They don't make any money that way. So they design these cell sites to maximize coverage for you. And that's how they're set up to broadcast, just like a honeycomb. And that little black triangle right in the center, that is one tower broadcasting in 3 different directions.
You're gonna leave your carrier unless you're stuck with your carrier. It's too much trouble to change.
If you're unhappy, there's no too much trouble, sir. So this is a mapping from an old case I've done, and I just wanted to show you what my mapping software, or what some of our mapping software is going to report out. And so what it's showing you is it's accessing a side of the tower. It's showing a 120-degree angle. And then that shaded area, that is there by the software to catch your eye and let you know, and let me know as a person analyzing it, that that's the direction the antenna is broadcasting. So it's not to tell you where the device is. We're just talking about which way are the radio frequencies that was communicating with the device, which way was it pointing. That's all that shaded area is.
So if I'm looking at this thing right now, my tower is this thing right here, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you talked about like 120 degrees sort of coverage. That's gonna be this.
That line there, to that is 120 degrees.
And you're talking about the shaded area here
Is that part?
is for, I guess I'd call it illustrative purposes or something?
Yes.
Does that mean that there could be that if there's a cell phone using the cell phone out here, it's not going to use that tower? Can you see my, you may not be able to see
I
my.
cannot see, I'm sorry. Can you shake it a little bit?
Can you see, okay, you see it?
Yes, sir.
Does that mean if I got a cell phone like right out here, that it's not going to use that tower?
that cell phone accessed that tower, it is using that tower. So I can tell you it's using the tower, but I can't tell you where it is, where it's using it from.
Okay, I guess I was trying to figure out, when you said it's to catch our eye, I think why'd you say this area here was to catch our eye?
I want your eye to know that the phone was accessing that tower from that direction.
And I guess that's why I'm asking it, because that shows more than a direction. That shows a boundary.
It shows an area.
Okay.
That shaded area is just to draw the eye more towards, it's coming from that area instead of behind it.
So is this bound, so I guess I'm trying to just get things straight. Is this boundary a strict boundary when we start? Absolutely not. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. So this is illustrative of sort of an area or a direction. But this boundary very well may extend a little further or a little less, not be perfectly arc-shaped.
Yes, sir. That boundary has absolutely nothing to do with the cell site coverage, nothing at all. It is put in by the software just as illustrative, just to know which direction that antenna was pointing and broadcasting.
I understand the point of that.
Yes, sir. And then the next slide. This is actually what a cell site broadcasting looks like. That is two cell sites broadcasting two different sectors, and that topmost antenna is in red, that bottommost is in blue, and you can see how they overlap each other and bleed over in each other and have that side lobe and the back. So like he was saying, that where was this device, because this is from an actual case, but not this case. Where was the device that when it was accessing that tower? If it's the red, it's somewhere inside that shaded red area. When it accessed the blue tower, the tower I have labeled as blue, I'm sorry, it's somewhere in the blue. So I can't tell you where it was. I just know that it accessed that tower within that tower's coverage area. And I'm saying tower. Right now we're looking at this, we're looking at one antenna on a tower. So we're looking at the broadcast coverage of an antenna on that top tower and broadcast for one antenna on that bottom tower. You can see how it overlaps.
Okay, so I do see, I understand what you're saying about overlap, like this thing's gonna go out and this thing's gonna go out and they're gonna overlap each other.
Yes, sir.
What are the colors here? I don't understand this. So there's this brighter red pink thing and then there's purple.
That purple is the mixture of that blue and that pink.
I got you. All right, so
That's where they're
this
bleeding
light
together.
blue down here,
Is the bottom tower.
okay, and then the pink is the top tower,
Yes, sir.
but where they overlap is the purple.
Yes, sir.
So now we see that we're never dealing, it doesn't look like we're ever going to be dealing with straight lines or straight arcs and just 120 degrees.
Never. No, sir.
Okay. And it looks like we're also going to be dealing with multiple towers at the same time.
Yes, sir. And that 120 degree arc, you can see on the pink, there's some behind it. There's some on the side of it. So that tower, those radio frequencies are actually bleeding back behind. So you can be behind that tower and still connect to the opposite face. It all depends on the traffic of that tower. And these maps, that mapping was done at a specific date and time. It will change based on weather. It's rainy, the tower's not gonna go out as far. We have a music fest downtown. They're gonna shrink, they're gonna turn down the strength of the tower so that it encompasses a smaller area, because you have more people in a smaller area. So these towers, they breathe. The range of the tower, that could be maximum, and then they can turn down the power and it would be smaller.
So I'm going to ask a question that may skip ahead. I just want to go ahead and ask it. For what I'm getting already from this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you or anybody's not going to be able to pinpoint exactly where a cell phone is in terms of a meter or 2 meters or 10 meters or 20 meters at any particular time.
No, sir.
What I'm getting is that we're talking about areas.
Yes, sir.
What I'm getting is you could tell me whether or not a cell phone is in this area and this is an area downtown called okay, and not in Midtown over here.
And one thing to point out that I left out is all those little blue dots in there. Those are other cell towers. So
So that can help me exclude where I'm.
absolutely, because a cell phone it's not gonna grab the nearest tower. It's gonna communicate with the nearest available tower. If that tower if you think of a tower as a cup of water, if it has too many transactions going on that it can't hold anymore, that tower will let you skip it and you will grab the next one that's available to it. But you're probably not going to skip 3 towers because the probability of those towers being full at that exact point in time. So
I'm probably, you can see where my cursor is right here.
you would be closer to the towers than you would be out there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so if I'm accessing one of these 2 towers right here, right, then my phone's probably not 4 or 5 towers over right here.
Correct.
I got you.
And especially looking at this map, that little blob of pink down at the bottom right-hand corner is coming from that tower at the top. But there's, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 towers from that tower to that blob. If that device is in that blob, it's probably not going to grab that tower that's up at the top. It's going to grab one of the ones that's closer to it that's available, the closest available tower. Yes, sir. And I mentioned a few of these things. The coverage is never perfect. Things like buildings and the weather. Downtown, we have the river. Cell phone radio waves reflect off water. And the range of that tower antenna is going to be based on the population, the terrain, the number of towers around it, because the device is always going to grab the nearest available tower, closest available, not the closest available. And with that,
Do we begin your work on this case?
yes, sir. Just want to make sure that these pages. Okay, yes, sir.
At some point during this investigation, did you receive call detail records for phones relating to the investigation of the murder of young Dolph?
I did.
In particular, did you receive call detail records for a telephone that was identified to you as belonging to Justin Johnson?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you receive call detail records for a phone identified to you as belonging to Cordelia Smith?
Yes, sir.
Did those call detail records have what I'm calling tower or location information?
They did. Yes, sir.
Were you asked certain questions? Did we ask you certain questions about what you could determine about those phones?
Yes, sir.
You can begin.
So in February of this year, I met with Attorney Hagerman and the case investigator, Jesse Browning, and they gave me call detail records on this 901-236-1625. They were received by a search warrant by the investigator on the case in December of 2021.
For the record, is that the phone that was described to you as belonging to Justin Johnson?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then they'd asked me to look over these records on November 17th, 2021, between 1 a.m. and 10 p.m. on November 17th. And that was the analysis done on the 236. In April of this year, they brought me another phone number related to Cornelius Smith, 901-513-6236. And again, they were obtained by a search warrant in December of 2021. And on this device, they only asked a time frame of November 17th between 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. So not as many hours on the second phone number. This is very, very difficult to see from this angle. So you're probably going to not be able to make all this out. But this is an overview of Shelby County, Memphis, Tennessee, with the locations that they had given to me with road charges at these dates and times. These locations are important. Can you overlap the cell records? Just show movements. And
Let me go ahead and interrupt you and try to walk us through just location for a second.
yes, sir.
Okay, just what we have here. We have people not from Memphis to start. Okay.
Copy that.
Mississippi River, downtown Memphis, is that right?
Yes, sir.
This is probably about where we are right about here or something, is that right? I think that's the bridge.
Oh, okay. I see the cursor. I couldn't see it. I apologize.
Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
that is correct.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
Downtown Memphis. I go up here to my green dot here. It's a few miles away. Is that Crosstown Concourse?
Yes, sir.
There actually is a yellow line that connects. It's just probably impossible to see from where they are. And if I go to my next thing here, this is East Memphis. And the line is to Valero gas station.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? I go here to the red dot, South Memphis. This is near the airport. This is the homicide scene at 2370 Airways.
Yes, sir.
And if I go down further south, we have Whitehaven over here. Further south, the Gospel Garden Apartments, used to be 2A apartments.
Yes, sir.
All right, so South Memphis, homicide scene, technically South Memphis. You familiar with the neighborhood Orange Mound?
Yes, sir.
In Orange Mound. Valero gas station by the University of Memphis,
University of Memphis,
East Memphis. And Crosstown next to downtown, a few miles from where we're at.
Yes, sir.
And all this, so you go back to tell me what we're looking at here. What's all this stuff?
So I loaded the call detail records in an application called PLX by Penlink. And I did that so I can pull up every cell tower within 10 miles of, of Memphis, Tennessee, dead center, not downtown, but kind of dead center of Memphis, Tennessee. And based on the cell site list that I got from Indicat, there were 563 T-Mobile towers within 10 miles of Memphis, Tennessee. But based on all of those towers, we're going to look at the ones that the device accessed during the time frame that was requested of me. That was just a zoomed in location for the homicide scene on Airways that was just north of the airport.
Okay, so this is Nikita's Cookies.
Yes, sir.
Airways Boulevard.
Yes, sir.
One second.
This is sliding.
Yeah, might as well. we had a couple slides that became not relevant, and so we've taken them out, so,
Yes, sir.
but they're still in the computer, so we're switching, we're fast forward, basically. Is that where you take back up?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is a screenshot of the document that we received from T-Mobile. This is one of the first pages of the call detail records. And what we've got here is the name and address of the subscriber, this top red box. And it comes back to the Curia Guy and the address of 2667 Pfizer. And then at the bottom, the activation and termination dates of this account. So when was this account created? And the activation date was on 9/22/2020.
Through the investigation, are you familiar with that to be a relative of Justin Johnson?
Yes, sir, that's correct. That's Justin Johnson's sister. And this is the subscriber information for the second phone number, the name and address of the subscriber, Cornelius Smith, and the subscriber address of 1766 Wild Rose in Memphis, Tennessee.
So Smith's phone is actually subscribed to him, or he's actually a listed
Yes, sir.
subscriber,
Yes, sir.
and Johnson's phone is the sister?
Yes, sir. That's correct. And then the activation and termination dates, at the time of we received this, it was activated on 9/25/2021.
All right, looks like we're beginning with the questions that you were asked and analyzed with regard to 236-1625, which you testified is the phone described you as Justin Johnson's.
Yes, sir. And these were the questions that, from our meeting, that they were asking, am I able to determine from these records if the device left the crosstown concourse? If I was able to determine if the device went to the Valero gas station at Park and Highland? Am I able to determine if the device returned to the crosstown concourse? And then again, did the device leave crosstown again? And was I able to determine where the device was during the time of the murder? So it's 12:21 p.m. to 12:23 p.m. Then was I able to determine if the device went to the Gospel Gardens apartments? And did the device return to the crosstown concourse after that? Those are the questions that were asked me. That was the basis of what I was looking for during this analysis. So the call detail records come from T-Mobile in the UTC, Universal Time Coordinated. The records come universal so that no matter where you are in the world, you can adjust the time to your local time. And our software does that, and we can do that looking at the data. Instead of make a copy, and then I analyze the copy of these call detail records. And at this time, we were outside of daylight savings. So our time zone here in Memphis, Tennessee is UTC -6, spring forward, fall back. So I adjusted the call detail records to our local time zone. I did not leave them in UTC time. And then the second phone number, the 901-513-6236. Again, these records were received from T-Mobile in UTC, and I adjusted the time zones on them as well. And only question asked on this phone number were between the hours of 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. What towers were being accessed by this device? Now, they asked me until 10 p.m. There was no activity on the device from, I think, 5:48 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's why the hours 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. is listed in this slide because there was nothing to look at after 5 p.m. So 5 p.m., 10 p.m., there was nothing.
And this is the Cornelia Smith phone?
Yes, sir. So these were the tools that I used to look at this information. I used a program, it's a web-based called CellHawk. I used Microsoft Excel because the records come in a TXT format or a PDF. But I can make a copy and then I can change the time zone to reflect local easily in Microsoft Excel, and also use PLX by PinLink. Those are the versions of software that I used on this case. When these files are opened up in Excel, they are actually pretty wide. So we hide a couple of the rows when we're not trying to use that information because it's not relative to the investigation. We can hide out the device ID, the IMSI, the IMEI, and so what you've got across the top, and you can't see it, and that's why we use really big monitors, because these fonts are so small, and the rows across the top are pulled from the records. And what you've got is the date and time, and then I changed it from UTC to Central Standard. The duration of the call, and the duration is how long that call lasted. The direction of the call, was it leaving the mobile device or incoming or outgoing? Then the azimuth of the cell tower that was used. The azimuth is the dead center of that antenna of that 120 degrees. Then that azimuth is going to have 60 degrees to the left of it, 60 degrees to the right. So that's the dead center of that antenna. But as we've seen, that antenna can be more than 120. But the cell company knows the azimuth of that antenna. They're reporting that to us. Then the location of the cell tower used, they provide it in two different ways to us. They give us the latitude and longitude of the exact tower, and that is perfect. Because a lot of times you see a tower out in the middle of a field. That field has a physical address on a road, but that's not where the tower is. So they give us the latitude and longitude of that tower, so we can walk right to it using GPS if we had to repair it. They also give us the physical address of the tower, which would be the address of the road that it's numbered off of. And they're not going to be in the same spot. The physical address is where you would go, and you would see the tower somewhere on that property.
I have a couple questions, and maybe stuff to get to. But I don't want to forget them, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask them. You mentioned duration of a call.
Yes, sir.
So if I see a call between one person and another person on these call detail records, and let's say it's 8 seconds or 10 seconds or 12 seconds or whatever the time is, does that mean those people talk for 8 seconds or 10 seconds or 12 seconds?
It means you hit the send button and then hit the end button. That's the duration of that call. Whether there was communication between two people or a voicemail being left, or you called and you listened to somebody's voicemail. I don't really feel like leaving a message end. That's the duration of that call.
So the duration doesn't actually mean two people necessarily talking to each other.
Correct.
The second thing is we're talking about calls. Is this same sort of stuff done for like text messages and stuff?
Yes, sir. On the T-Mobile network, the text messages don't have cell site location. It's routed through the network, but they don't tell you which tower it was using. So now we're looking at calls and data sessions.
I got you. So with text messages, we're more limited on T-Mobile.
Yes, sir. And now we're looking at the phone number 901-236-1625, which belongs to Justin Johnson. And from 1 a.m. to 2:35 a.m., this device accessed a tower. Now this is where we're talking about the shaded area. The shaded area is just showing which direction the antenna was broadcasting its radio signals. It just happened to cover the crosstown, which you see. I dropped a pin in there to denote the location of the crosstown. So that device was accessing that tower, and of course, it was providing coverage for that location from 1 a.m. to 2:35 a.m.
And so let me ask a couple of things here. First of all, it's almost impossible to see from where they're sitting. But this red dot here is the crosstown concourse.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you say from 1 a.m. to 2:35. Does that mean there is one phone call that lasts an hour and 35 minutes?
No, sir, the transactions that were recorded, the events, the calls are on the next slide.
Okay, very good. Switch to the next one.
And you can only map the data if it's there. So if there's a transaction that doesn't have a latitude and longitude, we can't map it. So what we're looking at is what I could map. And there were 12 different events, like all mobile outgoing incoming calls between 1 a.m. and 2:35 a.m. And all of those access that tower during that time frame.
I got you. So here's the list of calls, incoming and outgoing, and the ones that we have information on all hit that tower that covers Crosstown.
Yes, sir.
And is it fair to say you would not be able to say if that phone is on the 8th floor of the concourse or the 2nd floor of concourse?
No way to know, sir.
Wouldn't be able to say whether or not it's inside concourse or in the parking lot.
No way to know.
Wouldn't be able to say if it's in the parking lot of concourse or the street to the north or the south, the east or the west.
No, sir. No way.
But in the area of the Crosstown concourse
Yes, sir.
between 1 a.m. and 2:35 a.m.
Yes, sir. So this slide that you're looking at here at 3:17 and 1800ths of a second a.m., the device accessed a tower on the T-Mobile network. Tower number is 65667. Sector 2 with an azimuth of 180. That just means it hit the south antenna of that tower. And that was an outgoing call going to 901-210-0852, and it lasted 1 minute and 43 seconds. And that tower provides coverage for the area of the Valero gas station.
All right, we're talking about entirely a separate area of Memphis, right?
Yes, sir.
So
The University of Memphis area.
University of Memphis is right here. So the Valero station, is that what's marked? Here?
It's the green pin. Yes,
Green
sir.
pin, green pin.
Yes, sir.
The green pin here, it's Valero station. And we're so far away from Crosstown that this is not on this map. Is that
It is
right?
not. No, sir.
It's gonna be up and over here somewhere, is that right?
Yes, sir. And that highlighted road right there was the data that I mapped. That's from the records, and it was, that was that outgoing call to 210-0852 that lasted for a minute and 43 seconds.
At 3:17 a.m.
Yes, sir.
At that time, the device is in an area with the tower that includes the Valero gas station parking island.
Yes, sir. And at 4:49 a.m., the device accessed another T-Mobile tower, 65695, sector 64, azimuth 300, which is facing kind of northeast, with an outgoing call to 901-728-2851, and that call lasted for 21 seconds. And that tower is just south of the Crosstown concourse that I have a pin dropped. Yes, sir.
Is this the green thing, Carl? Yes. The green here is Crosstown?
Yes, sir.
Is this a same tower or different tower as before when phones in the area across town.
That is a different tower.
Does that mean necessarily that the phone's not in the same place as it was before?
It just, that tower provides coverage for the crosstown, same as the tower before, sir.
Okay, so the coverage across town is going to be more than one tower.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, both of these, the tower we saw before and the tower we just saw, could provide coverage to cross town.
It could, yes, sir.
Okay.
And this was the transaction that I mapped the outgoing call to 728-2851 that lasted 21 seconds. Then we go from 4:49 a.m. The next information that I could map was not until 9:56 a.m. later that morning. And that was an outgoing call to 901-728-2851 that lasted for 94 seconds. And that call access tower 11903 with sector 3 azimuth 260 facing west, kind of southwest, angled down. And that tower provides coverage for the crosstown concourse that I have a pin dropped. It's inside the shaded area as well.
It's at 9:56 a.m.
Yes, sir. And this was the transaction that I mapped out. And then there were two other calls that connected to that tower. Two outgoing calls, 404-662-8744 that lasted 69 seconds. And then 888-111-2663 that lasted 66 seconds. And according to the service codes from the provider, service code 042 and 51, that initial call was placed on hold. Those other calls were answered, and then they had a conference call together. So you had a three-way call going on.
Okay,
That
so
was
there was a three-way call from the device. I'm looking for the time code. Is it 350? Is it 9:57?
Yes, sir. There was 9:56, 53,
Okay.
and then the others at 9:57, 17, and then 9:57, 23. Then there was an outgoing voice call made to 901-201-9581 at 11:30 and 13 seconds. That access tower 65731, sector 13, azimuth 300, just facing kind of northwest. That lasted for 112 seconds, which is 1 minute and 52 seconds. And that tower is south of the crosstown concourse, and it appears that device has left the air of the crosstown. This tower is south of.
Crosstown's not on this map anymore, but
No, sir.
it would be north of
Yes, sir.
north of this map. Is that right?
That's right.
So this would not be a tower that provided coverage across town.
Correct.
And this is at 11:30.
So 11:30 and 13 seconds.
So by 11:30, the device has left the crosstown area.
Yes, sir. It's accessing towers that are south of the crosstown. Then this is a screenshot of the raw data of the tower that I just mapped with the outgoing call to 201-9581 that lasted for 112 seconds. And there was an outgoing call to 901-246-0101 at 12:06:07 p.m. that accessed tower 158-660, Sector 3, azimuth 290. And that antenna is facing west-southwest, and that lasted for 3 seconds. And then an incoming call from 901-315-9866 at 12:09 that accessed tower 165-641, sector 132, azimuth 145, facing southeast. There was no duration on that call. Those two calls access the towers that are facing each other, the antennas that are facing each other from those two towers.
Okay, so we have two calls right there, 2 or 3 minutes apart, 12:06 and 12:09. And they're accessing these two towers, which are
Yes, sir.
near each other, pointing next to each other.
The antennas are pointed almost directly at each other, providing coverage for that area.
Okay, and do we have any pins? Do we have any pins for things we've seen before on this map?
There is a pin, but it's off map. That's the area of Lamar and Sims. The Valero gas station is not on there. It's too zoomed in too close to see the homicide scene, or because that's the writing on the left is the end of the homicide scene marker.
The writing on the left, doesn't help
That highlighted to the left of the screenshot, towards the bottom left corner.
bottom left corner.
Come up just a hair. Come up.
Oh, here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the homicide scene.
That's the pin that I put on the map, notating the homicide scene.
Okay, and you got it cut off because I guess it's right here.
Yes, sir.
So we're in the,
We're east of the homicide scene.
we're slightly east of the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
Crosstown's way north.
Yes, sir.
Downtown's way west.
Way west. Yes, sir. And then next slide, that's the data that I mapped on the slide before, the towers that were accessed. Then at 12:17,
12:17, we're getting close to homicide time, is that correct?
yes, sir.
Somewhere between 12:21 and 12:23 or 4.
Yes, sir. And we've got an outgoing call to 901-519-1799. And that device access tower 164-286, sector 131 with an azimuth of 90, which is facing directly east. And that call lasted for 6 seconds. And that tower is in the Airways in Lamar, in the area of Airways in Lamar, just north of the homicide scene.
Just catch up real quick over here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 12:17. If we could reverse one slide. 12:17. Towers here, is that towers here?
Yes, sir.
And that's not you doing that. What is we have a pin on this map?
There's no pin on this map. The homicide scene is off screen, towards the bottom.
Airways. Trying to figure out how far up it is. You have a landmark on this? We'll see it better on the next map.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But the homicide scene is over here somewhere.
It's just south, so towards the bottom of that map,
Okay.
because you've got airways that's running north and south, and we need to get closer to the interstate to see the homicide scene.
And we are about 6 minutes or somewhere between 4 minutes and 7 minutes from homicide.
Yes, sir. And again, this is the data that was mapped of that outgoing voice call that lasted 6 seconds. And then at 12:22:40,
Let me stop you for a minute. We need to take a break.
Yes, sir.
All right. Just a quick refresher. 10:15. Keep your books here. And we can stand in recess.
Court stays in recess. Jury's not here into the courtroom.
All right, Agent Garner, we had stopped off here 12:22 PM, just after noon, in the murder time frame of 12:21 to 12:24, correct?
Correct, sir.
All right, do we have some sort of phone activity at 12:22:40?
Yes, we have a data session at 12:22:40 that accessed the tower 29098, sector 23762, azimuth 180, means that antenna was facing south. That duration of that data session lasted 6 seconds.
Okay, and
That tower right there could provide coverage for the homicide scene.
okay, so this tower right here,
Yes, sir.
south, and like we said before, this is not a boundary, this is for illustrative purposes.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Homicide scene is the red dot here, is that right?
That's correct.
I mean, if they can see my cursor, but we have homicide scene, yellow line. So McKay is here. And the tower is north of the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
We're in the neighborhood of Orange Mound. And this is 12:22:40. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
What is this blue shade area up here?
That is the mapping of a previous cell tower that was accessed, that was north of the homicide scene.
Oh, okay, I got you. So we've already looked at that, one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then we come down here for 12:22, and we're on the tower that could provide coverage to the homicide scene.
Yes, sir. And this is the data session that was mapped at 12:22:40. At 12:23:05, there was an incoming voice call from 901-315-9866. That call was not answered and it was sent to voicemail. And that accessed tower 164286. sector 131, azimuth of 90, which is facing east. And then
I think we went back, oh, I'm sorry, I think we went backwards a second, okay. So now we are less than a minute from that last phone call, is that right?
yes,
And I see orange mound.
this is the tower that's north of the homicide scene.
North of the homicide.
Yes, sir. Airways and Lamar, just north of.
So would it be fair to say the phone has moved at this point? Or yes or no?
That phone just accessed that tower. I don't know where it would be.
Is this tower close to the other tower?
Yes, sir. That was the previous slide where you saw the little slice of shaded blue north of, that's that tower.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So let's go back to that slide. I thought you had said this was a previous call, but is this
It
a?
That is a
subsequent
previous call,
Okay.
but then the device reconnects to that tower again.
So 1222, the one that could cover the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
1223, we're back up on this tower that is north of the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
Could this tower also cover the homicide scene?
I wouldn't know that unless I was able to do like a drive test on it to see the coverage that tower could
So would it be
extend out.
would it be impossible to say yes or no to that?
Without testing, it'd be impossible. Yes, sir.
Now, do also see, because the pins are so hard to see from far away. This is Bradley Street, the address on that Bradley Street, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, if we could skip forward.
And if we'll back up one, that slide there, that under call that the device accessed the tower just north of, where you can actually see the shaded corner. That device then reconnected to the tower just south of it. When that unanswered call was sent to voicemail, it accessed that tower, 29098, sector 23762, azimuth 98 is facing south. So you have an incoming call that accessed the tower north of it. That call is not answered and it's sent to voicemail. And that transaction connected to the tower just south of it. That's what we're seeing right there.
And the tower just south of it, is it this tower?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is the same tower we saw at 1222 that covers the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So to get this right, there's activity at 1222 at a tower that covers the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
There's activity at 1223, which is the call and voicemail,
Yes, sir.
which accesses two different towers.
Yes, sir.
One is this tower north of, I don't know if I'm doing that or not. One is this tower slightly north of the homicide scene
Yes, sir.
that may or may not cover the homicide scene.
Correct.
And then when voicemail picks up or whatever, same call, different activity, it accesses the tower south of it,
Correct. Access is a separate tower. Yes,
which
sir.
is that same tower that services the homicide scene.
Yes, sir.
Does that necessarily mean that the phone was moving at the time since it went one tower to another tower?
It could be indicative of movement. It could be that tower that services the homicide scene is just north of the interstate. And if there was a lot of traffic, that tower could get full and it would shift off its it would say it's a busy, full, no more traffic. So it would pass off its communications to another tower.
Okay. Would it be fair to say then that these towers are close enough to each other that it could mean the phone is moving, or it may not mean that the phone is moving?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
And this is the transaction in is listed in the records of the incoming call and being sent to voicemail that I mapped out. And had 26 different calls between 12:58:33 and 1:57:50 that access this tower in South Memphis. It's going to be tower 157889. Two sectors, 3 and 13. That's going to denote the antennas. You have more than one facing the north-northwest at azimuth of 345. And that cell tower provides coverage for the Gospel Gardens apartments.
So now we're about 30 minutes or more, a little bit more after the homicide, and the phone's in an entirely separate area of Memphis,
Yes, sir.
entirely separate tower,
Correct.
vastly different coverage,
Yes, sir.
vastly different towers, but we are the tower that would service the Gospel Garden apartments.
Yes, sir. And that is just all 26 calls from the records that I mapped out.
From 30 minutes after the homicide to over the course of the next hour.
Almost an hour exactly, yes, sir. And then there were 44 calls that I mapped out from 2:22:45 p.m. until 5:23:18 p.m. And these access towers, 156814 and 156815, two different antennas, antenna 5 and 15, with an azimuth of 240 degrees and antenna 133 with an azimuth of 300. So that device was hitting that tower with those different antennas 44 different times between those, actually it's a 3-hour time period.
So the phone has left the coverage area for the tower that covers the Gospel Garden apartments,
Yes,
which is South Memphis.
yes.
It has traveled
This is the
substantially east, is that
Yes, sir.
correct? And I'm looking at the map, there's Hickory Hill, is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the Hickory Hill area of Memphis. And that is 222 to 523?
Yes, sir. Those are the 44 transactions that I mapped out for that 3-hour time period. Well, it's very difficult to see. It was very difficult to put into a presentation. What we're seeing is 13 calls that I mapped out. Kind of shows the device moving in a north from the Hickory Hill area towards the Baptist East location of Walnut Grove and Interstate 240. And those calls, last tower hit at 5:48 on that northernmost tower at the very top of that picture. And those transactions show that device moving northbound. And the 5:48, that was the last data from that device I could map from the CDRs. We go from Hickory Hill on the bottom and just head north. And those were the 13 transactions that I mapped out.
All right, that was the Justin Johnson phone. 513 is a Cornelia Smith phone?
Yes, sir. The 513-6236. And there was no data to map between 11 and 12. It asked for 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., but from 11 to 12, there was nothing for me to map. There was no transactions there. And then from 12 to 1, you had 5 different calls that I have listed here that access towers, is around the Lamar and Sims. So starting the top, you've got an incoming voice call from 901-213-7867 that came in at 12:01:26. That call accessed tower 158661, sector 13, azimuth 290, facing west-northwest. That call lasted 1 minute, 12 seconds. Then a second incoming call from 901-236-1625 at 12:02:55 that accessed tower 158661, sector 13, azimuth 290, facing west-northwest as well. That call lasted 9 seconds. You had a third call, incoming call from 901-236-1625.
All right, well, wait a second. I got distracted because something caught my attention. These last 2 calls we talked about at 12:02 and 12:04.
Yes, sir.
All right. It's an incoming call from 236-1625.
Yes, sir.
Well, we know what number that is.
That is Justin Johnson's cell phone number.
Okay, so we're looking at Cornelius Smith's call detail records,
Yes, sir.
and at 12:02 and at 12:04, he receives phone calls from Justin Johnson's phone.
Correct, sir. Then the fourth transaction, incoming call from 901-273-4691 at 12:11 that accessed tower 156958, sector 12, azimuth 270, which is facing west. There was no duration recorded for that call. And then at 12:51, the last call that I mapped was an incoming voice call from 901-273-4691 at access tower 161877, sector 13, azimuth 340, which is facing northwest. And there was no duration for that call either.
So it looks like with regard to Mr. Smith's phone, you're gonna be able to map some stuff at 12:01, 12:02, 12:04,
Yes, sir.
12:11, but then not anytime between 12:11 and 12:51,
Correct.
okay, which would be the time the homicide would fall in there.
Yes, sir. And these were the towers that were accessed, and you can't really see the date and time that they were accessed. There were 3 calls on the that tower 158161 bottom tower, 3 calls there, and the times 12:01, 12:02, and 12:04. And then the other 2 towers, the calls.
Is that, there's no pen, but I can see now. That would provide coverage for the Lamar and Sims area, wouldn't it?
Correct, yes, sir. And then the 12:11 call access tower there at the top right. And then the 12:51 call access the tower there in the dead center.
The 12, the one I'm on right now is 12:11, is that right?
12:11:52, yes, sir.
12:11. We provide coverage for the Orange Mound area of Memphis, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I see there's a pin, this is Bradley, is that right?
That's correct.
And then, so this one's 12:11-ish, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
And then I move over here to this tower on the left, but that's 12:51, so
That's
we've had a
12:51.
good 40 minutes has passed.
Yes, sir.
And now I'm again in the Orange Mound area, and here's Bradley Street.
Yes, sir.
Homicide scene is this red dot.
That is the pin I dropped to the homicide scene, yes, sir.
Tell us what that phone does after 12:51.
The next hour I looked at from 1 PM to 2 PM, there were only three transactions that could map out. That was an incoming call from 901-273-4691 at 1 o'clock. And that access tower 65664, sector 11, azimuth of 90, which is facing east. And there was no duration for that call. Then there was, second transaction was an incoming voice call from 901-900-3143 at 1:14:54. That access tower 65664, sector 1, azimuth of 90, was facing east as well. No duration recorded for that call. And then the third transaction from 901-900-3143 at 1:41:21. That access tower 65664, sector 1, azimuth 90. There's no duration for that call as well.
What does that mean when we see calls with no duration?
It would be, if you place a call and you hang up before the other party answers or the call connects, there's going to be no duration there. If there was an abnormal completion on the call, that'd be a system glitch or kind of hiccup, there would be a no duration there.
But it still shows an event on the phone.
In the
A no
records.
duration call still
Yes,
shows
sir.
an event as far as records go.
Yes, sir.
And you're still able to use if it provides location, you're still able to use that location.
Yes. So looking at the records, the calls that came in, there were only 2 calls, they were incoming and not answered, and then they went to voicemail. But you have to look at the records and the definitions page to determine that. And what I have circled here are the service codes. And luckily, we asked for what these service codes mean, and they give us a definitions list. So I can look at their definition of what a service code means. And the 02A, as defined by T-Mobile, tells us that a call that came in, it was not answered, but then it was forwarded to one of T-Mobile's voicemail service numbers, voicemail service, 1-360-842-9999. And those 2 calls that show as 4, they access tower, the same tower 65664, sector 1, with an azimuth of 90. The voicemail that was left was 5 seconds, and the second voicemail was 3 seconds. And we can get that from the raw data that we see right there. And then that is a mapping of that tower, the 65664, sector 1, azimuth 90 facing east. That's the tower that we mapped out.
This is 1 o'clock. 1:14, 1:41, 1:42, 1:46, 1:47.
Yes, sir.
And we are a tower that services Orange Mount. And this is Bradley Street, that's the pin.
Yes, sir.
Could that tower provide coverage for Bradley Street?
That tower could provide coverage for Bradley Street, yes. So there were 17 calls between
And
2 p.m.
Yeah, let me back up.
Yes.
For the slides we just saw, is everything incoming?
Between
One,
between 1 and 2, everything was incoming. There was no outgoing phone calls.
everything's incoming. Does everything go to voicemail?
Nothing was answered and everything was sent to voicemail.
Okay, so everything's incoming, everything's not being answered, goes to voicemail. Tower that covers Bradley Street. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Would that be consistent with the phone having been left behind? No one to tend to it?
Could be.
Okay.
If the calls are not being answered, yes, sir. So between 2 p.m. and 3 p.m., there were 17 calls that came in. This is going to get a little, wouldn't say messy, but the first and second, they weren't 2 calls. That was 1 call. It was an incoming call that was not answered and went to voicemail. Then the 4th call and the 5th call was another call that came in unanswered, was sent to voicemail. The software can show that as 2 different transactions, 2 different calls, but looking at the raw records will tell you that's not 2 different transactions. That was an incoming call, was not answered, and it was sent to T-Mobile's voicemail number. And looking at the service codes, again, the 028 tells us the service codes, they're circled. That the call came in, it was not answered, and it was forwarded one of T-Mobile's voicemail numbers. So you had a series of incoming and outgoing calls of those 17 between 2 and 3 p.m.
Okay, so what is the first outgoing call from?
First outgoing call was at 2:36. I'm sorry, 2:39:33. We gotta back up 1 slide.
That stuff that you were explaining, I see outgoing on this list, I think you were just explaining, but that's not a true outgoing call.
That is not a device making an outgoing call.
I got you.
That is a call that's come in, not answered, then it's routed to the voicemail.
So when's the first true outgoing call?
First true outgoing call was at 2:39:33 to 273-4691.
So the first true outgoing call, 2:39, is what you said?
2:39.
You said that.
And these were the towers that were accessed by those incoming calls. You had 7 calls on that top tower.
Gotcha, everything incoming.
Yes, sir.
Tower that could cover Bradley, Orange Mound. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then the device starts accessing 2 different towers, the tower shown at the bottom.
Once we have that outgoing call at 2:39, then at
There's-
2:40 and at 2:56, a bunch of different times.
Yes, sir.
2:43, 2:47, 2:48, 2:50, 2:52, 2:55. We start accessing different towers
Different towers. Yes, sir.
South of where we were.
And those towers provide coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims. And then between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m., there were 25 different calls, both incoming and outgoing. Between 3 and 3:20, device access tower 158661, sector 13 with an azimuth of 290 that was facing west. There were 13 calls, 3 incoming and 10 outgoing. Again, item number 6 and 7 is an incoming call. The number was busy this time and it went to voicemail. And we're told that by service code 29. And then after between 3:20 and 4 p.m., the device is going to move around the city. So we're going to see a bunch of different towers being accessed after 3:20 p.m. So this tower right there at Lamar and Sims, there were 16 transactions reported. That was between 3 and 3:20. They all accessed that one tower between 3 and 3:20. So the red dot is the pin that I dropped locating the homicide scene. The tower just to the right of it was a tower that device was accessing for that first 20 minutes between 3 and 3:20.
That's Lamar and Sims.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then it moves over and accesses the tower to the right at 15:26. And then just above that at 3:29 p.m. And then that north tower on the top of the sheet at 3:37.
So the phone is just sort of, it's Lamar and Sims for a while because we held multiple calls there.
Yes, sir.
And then it's on the move around the city.
Yes. And then when it gets into the downtown area, I kind of broke those up because it got real congested to look at. So you see the towers that were accessed between 3:40 p.m. and 3:55 p.m.
Okay. And all these towers are downtown Memphis,
Yes, sir.
and these towers are all close to each other. I'm looking here. This is one area of downtown Memphis, and our time ranges are.
This is between 3:44 and 3:55 p.m.
Okay. So accessing towers in downtown Memphis.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can proceed.
And then this is still different towers in downtown,
Okay.
3:58 p.m. and both of them 3:58 p.m. The calls were bouncing off, accessing tower to the right and then accessing the tower to the left. And then there were only 2 calls between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. One outgoing voice call from 902-901-864-2309 at 4:18. That call access tower 161877. Sector 1 azimuth 70, which is facing east-northeast. And then the second incoming voice call, 901-318-7238 at 4:59. That access tower 154315, sector 14 azimuth 56, which is facing east-northeast. And that's what I have mapped on the next slide. Those are the 2 towers that were accessed at 4:18 and 4:59 p.m. The tower
Tower north of Bradley.
north of Bradley at
Orange
4:59, and the tower providing coverage for Bradley at 4:18. So, based on the mapping information that
Okay, we're about to switch back to the first phone. We're gonna get a summary, is that right?
yes, sir, we're going to summarize.
I may interrupt you and ask you a couple of questions, but we're going back to Justin Johnson's time.
Yes, sir. 901-236-1625. And this is all information that I mapped out from T-Mobile. Device, it was accessing the tower. They're providing coverage for the crosstown concourse from midnight to 2:35 a.m.
All right, so consistent with the area across town up till 2:35 a.m.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then the device accessed a tower that could provide coverage for the Valero gas station at 3:18 a.m.
Entirely different area of Memphis, right?
Yes, sir, near the University of Memphis.
Okay.
The device then returned to the area of the crosstown concourse by 4:49 that morning a.m.
Okay.
The device was accessing a tower providing coverage for the crosstown concourse from 9:56 a.m. to 11:06 a.m. And then the device was accessing towers that provided coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims from 12:02 to 12:10 p.m.
Different area of Memphis than Crosstown.
Yes, sir.
So by 11:06, well,
Uh,
by 12:02 is in the area, the coverage area, including Lamar and Sims.
Yes, sir.
And is that also the time frame in which we see the phone calls from this phone to Cornelius Smith?
Yes.
Okay.
Next slide. Right. The device was accessing towers that provide coverage for the area of 2370 Boulevard during the time of the shooting between 12:22 and 12:23.
Towers that cover homicide scene, time of the homicide.
Yes, sir. Then the device went to the area of Shelby Drive and Two-Lane Road from 1 p.m. to 1:59, which was the Gospel Gardens area.
Entirely different area of Memphis.
Yes, sir.
Tower provides coverage to the Gospel Garden, used to be called the Two-Lane Apartments.
Yes, sir. Then the device went to the area of Hickory Hill Drive and Valleydale Drive from 2:22 p.m. to 5:26 p.m. It was in the Hickory Hill area.
Leaves the area of the Gospel Garden.
Yes, sir. And then the device went to the area of Walnut Grove and Humphreys Boulevard from 5:42 p.m. to the 5:48 p.m. There were no records to map after that.
So you didn't get any more records with location information that you could map after 5:48.
Correct.
Now this is Cornelius Smith's phone.
I'm going to summarize the phone number for Cornelius Smith, 901-513-6236. And this is also based on the information that I got from T-Mobile. The device was accessing towers that provided coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims and 1168 Bradley between 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. And the device continually accessed a tower that provided coverage for 1168 Bradley from 12:28 p.m. to 2:38 p.m.
It's during that time period that everything's incoming.
Yes, sir. And going to voicemail. And then the device accessed towers that provided coverage for the area of Lamar and Sims until 3:19 p.m.
Do you know where Pressure World Car Wash is?
No, sir, I do not. The device traveled around the city to the downtown area between 3:20 p.m. and 4 p.m. And then the device returned to the area of 1168 Bradley between 4:16 and 4:28. And there were no records to map after 4:59 p.m.
Thank you, AJ. No further questions.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Evans,
You could come for a break, Judge.
I think it will be. Ladies and gentlemen, you've only heard part of this testimony, so it's probably a good time for lunch. So let's just take a lunch break. Let's break until 2 o'clock.
What's next in recess to 2 o'clock?